Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to a very special episode of the live Buildup show. Today we have a guest all the way from Egypt. He's actually in Egypt right now, vacationing. Omar Taha. Omar is someone who built a seven-figure consulting firm for businesses. He has built apps that had thousands of users, um,
Millions.
millions. Sorry, millions of
Yeah.
users. So let's get right into it. Omar, first of all, thank you for joining us, taking the time out to be with us.
Thank
As
you.
as people
Pleasure.
are as people are rolling in, um, how'd you get started?
How did I get started? Okay. In terms of what life I was
Right.
born, but in terms of business, you're saying?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we I saw one of your video clip. I guess you were doing a talk for young entrepreneurs, and I think so. How'd you get started in all this?
Sure. Well, I started out, in high school. In high school, I received a special. I was part of a special group. I
Hmm.
was from New York City, and I was put into something called the Academy of Finance. And the Academy of Finance in high school was like a specialized group that allowed you to work on Wall Street,
Uh-huh.
as a 16-year-old.
Hmm.
So I actually, in 1999, when I was at the fresh age of 16, I worked at my first job, which was like at JP Morgan Chase, or it was at Chase at the time. It was
So
Chase at the time.
so you're in corporate at age 16.
Exactly. And
Right.
so I worked from 16 years old. And then like every year after that, that summer of 1999, summer of 2000, 2001, 2002, I would just work at like these really, really big companies.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they could be uh, like it was PW PricewaterhouseCoopers, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, and the reason why I was doing that was because I guess societal pressure was like that's what you want, right? You want a
Right.
good job and so forth. And by the time I went to NYU, and by the time I graduated at NYU, I already had a six-figure job lined up. Over $100,000 job lined up at Bank of America, and
No, you're
I
fine.
worked there for 2 years. I worked there for 2 years,
Can't you hear him?
and yeah, uh,
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's weird. Just pull it out and pull it back in. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we're back. You were saying, from 16 you were working in JP Morgan, and you got into this special program. I mean, I guess as you continue, just so that everyone on the same page. Um, uh, so what do you focus on now? So that before I get your backstory, so that everyone sort of knows. I give a two-line intro to you. So what are you working on now, and then we can sort of go back and talk about how you get started.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess let me complete the backstory. The backstory will
Sure,
then make sense what I do now,
go
right?
for it.
Um, after graduating NYU, I worked 2 years, six-figure job
Hmm.
of 2004, 2005, $100,000 plus job. I mean, it still is a very nice gig, right? I had a very
Right.
nice gig at 22, 23. But what I found out is that I wasn't contributing in life, and I wasn't even like building anything. I was just like
Mm,
working for a paycheck and stuff like that.
right.
And I took the bold decision around 2006 when I was 23
Right.
to start my own consulting firm with one of my friends from NYU. And the first 6 months after starting my consulting firm, it was mostly in human resources consulting. The first 6 months, we made nothing, and then after the first 6 months, after like trying it out and so forth, it took off. It did very, very well. So the firm took off. Did that until around 2009-ish, right? Financial crisis hit, so that business sort of dried up. Usually most of my friends would go back and get their master's degrees anyway, around the age of 25, 26, 27.
Right.
So I decided when I was around 27 to go and do my master's in business administration. I got into a special program. It's called Wharton Lauder program. So basically, I got to study a non-business industry, which was like I did international studies, and I focused mostly on the Middle East. And I got my master's in 2012 after spending 2 years doing in business administration, marketing, and management, and a master's in international studies. So I really focused mostly on the Middle East. In 2000, around 2012, I started my first app. I had a consulting gig. I ended up getting a consulting gig for 3 months. It was a physical consulting gig out of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I did that for 3 months. While I was doing that, I built my first app business. It was called Quran Touch. It ended up getting and it still runs today, around 40 million users. 40 million users.
Wow. Yeah.
40 million users. Over 200 countries, if that is even possible. Every country in the world has, someone has used that app.
Wow.
And it was mostly on the iPhone platform, on the iOS platform. Okay, that was a springboard for me to start my own e-commerce company. I started a it wasn't more like e-commerce. It was like online subscription services. So I created a business called ESL Employer, was basically for English teachers. That did all right. That did pretty well right after I did my apps business. That sold to an Indian company for an undisclosed amount in 2014. Okay, and then in 2014, then I got the cool idea to start a franchise out of Saudi Arabia, Kaplan. You know Kaplan?
Of course. Any time anyone wants to study for a standardized exam like SAT or medical school exam, law school exams, Kaplan is one of the big ones.
Yeah. So I led the initiative to bring Kaplan over to Saudi Arabia.
Wow. For the first time?
Yeah, for the first time.
Wow.
Exclusive license to Saudi Arabia. We ended up starting an office out in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and after that, after business school and getting my master's and knowing marketing and stuff like that, I was like, there was repeated success, over and over again. I'm very thankful for that. And so I decided, let me go ahead, start up a information information marketing type business, because I sort of know what works in the market, kind of thing. I know how to get whether they be an apps business or e-commerce and so forth. So I started an information products business in 2015. In 2016, towards the end, I decided that I should go back and start consulting, but instead of this time human resources consulting, I would consult other entrepreneurs and startups and founders and stuff like that. So I started a firm called Taha Media, and that has served many big startups over the last few years. One notable startup was Easy Taxi. We helped this company go from zero, right? And just last year, at the end of last year, They raised over $100 million. There was basically an Uber clone type of business. And so quite recently, I've been really doubling up on my efforts to get more marketing clients, especially startups, but we're being very selective. So we really want to get to people that are firms and companies that are very successful, or going to be very successful, because that really shows our quality when you're very selective on who you work with. So thankfully, we've picked up a major candle company out of the Netherlands, money transfer company, and that's what my main focus is. But in the long term, my passion will be an initiative that I have right now. It's called Ads Hacker. Its name will change, actually. The names will change, but basically, it's a messenger bot for companies, businesses all over the world, and we're really redoubling up our efforts on that. That's what I do in a nutshell.
No, there's so much I want to ask you about some of those things I've mentioned. This is a show that's it's not a business show, and it's not an entrepreneur show either. It's obviously today is a very strange time because we usually don't do a show on a Saturday. It's usually Monday, so we're only going to have a certain amount of people, but over 500 to 1,000 people are going to be watching the replay afterwards. So, and we have found that our audience is very diverse. So from college students to young mothers to, people who are in corporates. And the show focuses on personal development and about the human that are behind these amazing things that are going on. So, I want to focus a little bit on the human side of it. And so on you and how do you make it happen, right? But oftentimes, I think when we have folks who are doing amazing in the entrepreneurship space, or in the e-commerce space, or in the marketing space, digital marketing space, oftentimes people hear what they're doing and it's great. And with that, I think what we want to sort of delve into is the person. All right, and so here you are, at age 16, you start, working for the corporate, and then you start a consulting firm with your friends. Then you move on, you built the app, then you start a Kaplan in Middle East. Now you are working on this your messenger bot and consulting selective companies and helping them really grow. So I want to step back a little bit and ask you, where did you grow up, and how was that like?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in New York City. Born and raised Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Bay Ridge, Brooklyn.
Very rich.
Okay. Yeah, and I lived there actually till I was, we'll say, around 10 years old. And then my parents, I don't know why, we lived 3 years in Cleveland, Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah, for 3 years, and then back to Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, the rest of the time. So, probably from when I was like 14 until 27, 28, completely Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, New York, and so forth. I mean, I had a great family. My parents were, never divorced. They're never, they stayed together. Really nuclear family. I have a brother and a sister, older brother and a sister. And I'm the youngest of them. And basically, my dad was an entrepreneur too. So he, he would also start up businesses and random businesses. A lot less rhyme and reason than what I do now. Okay. He was an immigrant from Egypt. And my mom is actually from Guatemala. So he always had this sort of entrepreneurial sort of mindset. He never believed in like working for anybody. Although when I started working, he was very supportive. He liked the idea of a steady paycheck
Ah,
and so forth. And when I actually became an entrepreneur, he was very much against it. Actually,
wow.
he didn't like it. Yeah, yeah,
Mm. You know, obviously growing up, your father, did his entrepreneurship in his own way, in his own resources that he had, and
yeah.
then obviously you start, you go to NYU, you decide not to work for corporate. How long after did you you were working for 2 years, if I remember correctly, uh,
Yes.
and then uh, as you said, your father wasn't too for you quitting and going into entrepreneurship. And a lot of folks, some of people watching this who want to go into entrepreneurship, there's all the struggle they have. That oftentimes their friends and family sort of discourages them, and like they want them to just go the classical path and steady income and get a job
Right.
and secure. What has your experience been, and what would you say to someone who's sort of watching this show right now, watching a replay, and they're struggling with this?
Yeah, well, I also coach thousands of wannabe entrepreneurs
Mm,
or people that are just getting into entrepreneurship, and people have different limiting beliefs or different psychological barriers
mm,
getting into entrepreneurship. It could be whether it's their family, it could be that what their beliefs about money.
yeah,
Oh, that's a
yeah.
big one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, when they think like they need to build Walmart like in the first year,
Right,
right? They
right.
think they need to build Amazon in the first year,
Yeah, they do.
and so a lot of people think it needs a lot more money than what it needs, right?
Mm,
When I started as an entrepreneur, and uh, what um, what was amazing was it was like around 2006. All I had was an internet connection and a phone,
mm,
and the website was being built. Okay, and like websites were a little bit more expensive than they are now. Like it's fairly cheap to get a website now, but at the time it was an expensive endeavor to get a website. I remember paying $500 to do my website, but that wasn't the main thing, right? For me, what I realized very early on that entrepreneurship is a people to people activity, right?
right.
That
Uh-huh.
what most people don't realize when
Uh-huh.
they get in and like sort of the psychological mindset that they get wrong is that that the tool is actually the road, right?
Ah. Mm.
That like for example, I get into e-commerce, that means I'm going to be a millionaire. No,
Right,
e-commerce. E-commerce is just a tool,
right.
right? It's your relationship with people that'll make you in like your e-commerce store that
Mm,
will make you a millionaire, or the relationship you have with people on your app that'll make you a millionaire. You
right,
understand? So
right.
like you have to and unfortunately the vast majority of people get into entrepreneurship think that the tools are gonna work
Right.
for them,
I mean,
but they yeah.
you got into it at a time when entrepreneurship wasn't as cool, So after obviously 2009, 2010, now everybody's uncle, brother, sister, father wants to be entrepreneur, right? It's a
Right,
very, very different space now.
right,
And when you were, I mean, it wasn't as cool. I mean, so definitely, oftentimes, when I have people that I coach in career coaching, they come and say, I don't want to work. I want to do business, right? So it's almost I tell them, okay, what business, in what field, how? Because it's like saying, I want to do a job. To me, that's what it sounds like. Oh, I don't want to do business. I want to do a job. But okay, what job? What career? What path? Uh,
right,
so,
right,
so,
right. What was the question?
obviously, you are, you make that jump, and
Yeah.
obviously for you. I mean, did you have any fear? Did you doubt yourself at any point? Because a lot of people starting up, even in careers, they choose a path that, they're a little afraid. How was it for you?
Well, I wasn't that afraid when I did it. I actually was just married too,
Mm-hmm.
and I even had like we probably had a kid expected on the way. I wasn't that fearful because I mean I grew up in America, right?
Right.
And it's like the world's richest country. Like
Mm.
it's very very hard to go broke. I've never seen I've
Right.
never seen somebody starving in America,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Right. So if you put yourself in that perspective,
Mm.
it also helped that I had a lot of money saved up.
Ah.
Because I was working on Wall Street. I just got a bonus and stuff like that. I had money saved up and stuff like that. So I wasn't that fearful. I mean, I just like the appeal of me working out of home, me
Mm.
determining my own hours, me sleeping in is definitely like that was so attractive to me
Right.
that I was not scared. Right. And by the way, like, I'm definitely in a minority. There's a lot of people that are scared and stuff like that
Mm.
and so forth. And there were some things that I mitigated my risk, right? Like I didn't go and quit my job immediately to start an entrepreneur. I started becoming an entrepreneur while I was making a salary.
Ah. So
Okay.
it's like a side hustle, and then you slowly build up to it.
Exactly. It was a side
Mm.
hustle. Like, I would make calls while I was at work,
Ah.
to,
Right.
and so forth. So, I mean, obviously that's not probably the most, um,
Right.
like kosher thing to do, like actually go and, make calls for for your own company and your own job. But, I did whatever it took. Right. And when you think that you can do whatever it takes to make it happen, it'll happen for you.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, you also need to realize that it's a mindset.
Mm.
Also, you have to have a mindset to be an entrepreneur. You have to have a mindset of learning, right? What works today doesn't work tomorrow.
Mm.
Okay, what worked yesterday doesn't work today.
Right.
So I always had, I'd always buy books, right, and read up, right. I would always ask for guidance and mentorship and so forth. That's like really important. Most people think that they're going to be successful as an entrepreneur sitting in a bubble in their home and just hustle, 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 which is
Mm.
like by far the biggest mistake you can do.
Right.
And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that push this narrative that you got to hustle, 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 and you'll be successful. No, hustling, you got to hustle smart. You've got to, talk to people. Like I can't emphasize the importance of getting to know people that are where you want to get at.
Mm.
And like, everybody in this world has resources. Everybody, from the garbage guy to the executive to, to the multi-billionaire. Everybody has their resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta realize that when you don't have resources and you're beginning as an entrepreneur, that you need to get other people's resources,
Mm.
right? Like I could have something right now that you would value a lot.
Right.
Okay, right? It could be like maybe I have 3 cars, and one like the lowest of the low of the car that I have is a Mercedes,
Mm-hmm.
and need to use my Mercedes for a day. Okay, if to you that Mercedes is really, you want to go to a meeting for a client or something like that, right?
Right.
And you want
Right.
to look good,
Right.
and right. To me, that Mercedes doesn't mean much to me. To you, it means a lot,
Mm.
right? The threshold to convincing me to maybe you borrowing my car could be very, very low, right? And I'm saying this is just one resource of millions that other people have that you could be taking advantage of.
Right. Your point being
Okay.
that if you make those connections and if you make those relationships, some people have resources that for them it's not a big deal, but for you it would change the world. Like, it would really open up doors for you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's not well, that's like a physical thing. Like a Mercedes is a
Right.
physical.
What was it for you,
But
specifically? I mean, for you, I mean, because 2 points you brought up here. One was about which I do want to get to your, you learning and connecting with other folks who are doing this, or people who already been there. So who was that, or what was that for you? And then how did, I guess, who played a role in opening up doors for you? Because I think a lot of people look at folks who are doing amazing things, and they look at them almost like this people who are just making things happen on their own, and some people are, some people are sort of doing on their own, but
No, no one is. No one is. Actually, everybody needs
that's a good
other
point.
people.
Yeah.
Like that. Like there are. And you asked me who was it? It wasn't one person, right? So, like, the last thing I want to get your audience to think about is, or to think in the way that it's only all you need is one person, right?
Right.
You need the culmination of tens and hundreds of people, right? Like, I could, Hassan, say I have a marketing firm, say I don't have any clients.
Right.
Okay. And I'm like, hey, Hassan, we're friends, we have this relationship and stuff like that. Do you know anybody that knows marketing? Oh yeah, I have a cousin that, he's struggling with his plumbing company.
Right.
I can introduce you to him. Right. Like if you add that up, right? So if I did that, with you one time and you got that recommendation and it's your cousin, right? And like, he's a contact, he's a resource that you have.
Right. Even family and friends. Right.
Right. And for you to recommend your cousin is like almost nothing, right? It's nothing to you. It's not a big deal. To me, that's my first client.
Right.
Right. That's my first client. So, what you need to realize is that like anybody's success is the culmination of hundreds of people, if not thousands, that help you through your way. But the mistake that the majority of entrepreneurs that I'm seeing here is that they sit in their room, they're sitting in their office. I'm in my office right now, and all they do is they think an email, they think that a spam, like there's no human to human connection. They think a website will sell itself, so forth, and that won't happen, right? And that's the one mindset that I want everybody here to realize is that whether it be knowledge, network, resources like financial or otherwise, are all with other people. It's just when you start to get into the hustle mindset, that you should be getting in the hustle mindset where you're getting in contact with other people that have those resources that you want to get.
Right.
Okay. Right. And I can tell you this, like making 10 phone calls a day is a lot more valuable than making 1,000 emails, sending 1,000 emails to people. Okay. Sure. So, right. And actually getting 10 face-to-face meetings is way better than doing 100 phone calls, right? You got to get very, very close to people. And that's unfortunately this generation has been raised on smartphones and technology, and they're not actually getting in touch with people.
So how much time do you spend? Because you mentioned listening, reading, or how much time do you spend reading now?
Wow.
These days, would that be listen to other podcasts, and a lot of entrepreneurs do they listen to things in the industry and so forth. How much time do you spend?
Yeah, I probably spend 20 hours a week learning.
20 hours a week.
20 hours a week, yeah, at least learning.
And then as far as I think a lot of, especially I've seen this with young entrepreneurs, they sort of struggle with, okay, so where do I build this relationship? I don't know anybody in my friends and family circle, and so how would you practically, what would you recommend that folks sort of do in sort of building their network and or just being able to be out there?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, be a nice person. Okay.
That's true.
Like, unfortunately, on the internet, you have people that have insecurities, right? And they become haters. And you don't want to be that person. Okay. The reason being is you're cutting off people for no gain at all. Right? Like you might get a temporary dopamine rush by like, hey, I told this guy off, or you know what, I'm smarter than Omar because I pointed out a mistake on an email
Right.
that he sent out, or oh, he makes grammatical errors, so I told him off, and I
Right.
get to tell people that I told this person off, and so forth. That doesn't get you anywhere,
Mm.
right? Like, I know people that are my quote unquote students, that you know that are really nice to me,
Right.
okay, and I help out way more than what they had given to me,
Ah.
right? Just because they're nice,
Mm.
right? And then I know people that are my students also that are just annoying people to be around,
Right.
that I don't go out of my way to help,
Mm.
right? So first and foremost, you got to be a nice person all around.
Right. You gotta be a
And
nice
if you're
human being. Right.
yeah, be a nice human being. And if you're
Right.
a nice human being, trust me, the minute you start being nice, opportunities will open up to you.
Mm.
Opportunities will be open up to you. That's number one. Number two, then, is that, like, there's no time ever in history that people are so accessible,
Right.
right? Like, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, you can get in touch with almost anybody now.
That's true.
Right? There's no excuse. Like, you not knowing how to get in touch with people is either you're too self-centered,
Mm.
right? So that's probably my third point, is that, like, you can't be self-centered. You've got to look in other people's needs and wants first before
Mm.
you ask for your own needs and wants.
And that's exactly what I thought about when you said, that other people have resources that you might need. And first thing that came to my mind is that and someone once told me, I had a mentor of mine. He said, look, as soon as you meet someone, first question you should ask yourself is, what can I contribute to this person? Because oftentimes people have this idea, and I've been to some. I'm not too much into entrepreneurship space. I'm more in the field of psychology. But I've been to some entrepreneurs
Sure.
events and so forth, and often feels, especially for folks who are getting in for the first time, not sure what it is. There's this almost artificial feeling in the room. People just going out there and almost trying to like get things from people. It's not as if
Exactly.
it's not a mutual relationship.
Yeah, and like, for me, it's like it's such a slow hanging fruit for people. Like, because I get tens of emails
Right.
a day, hundreds of emails a day, where people are just asking me for stuff.
Mm.
Um, and it's funny, like, I literally answer back people that are offering me, like, to help me with something,
Right.
right? Even if I don't need that help.
Mm.
I'm like, this person gets it. This person understands
Right.
that, like, you need to give, and then ask.
Mm.
Like, unfortunately, the vast majority of people just ask. And it's so self-centered,
Right.
and it's so,
It
it's
turns people off,
unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
and it turns people off. I mean, no one wants to deal with that type of selfish, and that's not networking. And people have this idea about networking. I think that you go in there and you give out your business cards, you get numbers, yeah, you could do that in at events, at whatever, even online space. But it's really about making those mutual win-win connections, right? I mean,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, and I think it's never been easier. If you know how to use technology and you know how to value the importance of human to human relationships, it's
Right.
never been easier
For sure. Yeah.
to really stand out. It really isn't, and you could stand out a lot quicker than ever before.
So obviously, yeah, from the very get go, right? You were managing a full time job, I'm guessing, and doing your consulting firm, and now obviously, I'm sure you're working on so many different. So you're pretty focused, but I'm sure it's a lot. How do you balance all this?
Well, so first and foremost, I like to focus.
Mm.
Okay, and I don't like telling people that of the different businesses I do. Okay, because it might portray the fact that I'm not focused. But the
Ah.
truth of the matter is that I have a staff, and I have people working for me, and I
Right.
have people that are really focused on that stuff, right? So what I do is you do the ultimate strategy and the vision and the sales, okay? And really my staff and people that work for me make it happen. So that's that's how it happens.
If this is not too personal, I think this will really benefit folks who are watching, and most people who will be watching on the replay. What is your typical day like? I'm sure it's very different, but I want to get a picture of sort of, how do you go about sort of, I'm sure you have, your family obligations. I'm sure you're spending time, just relaxing and for yourself. I'm sure working out and so forth. But what is a typical day like? How do you go about that?
Yeah. Well, typically my typical day now is, try to get up early in the morning. Well, today was really bad. Like today was not happening, right?
What time is it now? Right now in Egypt right now.
It's 7:45, 7:47, something.
In the evening.
So in the evening, yeah. So, unfortunately, I mean, I've read many books about the typical day and the most, productive type of day and stuff like that.
Right.
But for the most part, recently I've worked on getting more efficient. So I don't really focus on working too much, actually. It's just like, so I'll get up in the morning, do prayers, meditation, whatever, people call it, right? In the morning, that is extremely necessary, because it gets you focused on what's important, right? So
right.
You try to not have any grudges against anybody, okay? Which is like the most unproductive thing you can have, right? So you want to make sure that, you typically want to start your day just, focused on what is important, right?
Right.
So
if you're trying to play big, you can have petty fights, that just suck your energy for no reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So you make sure that you're completely okay with everybody, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is you got to be grateful. The reason being is because you start your day with gratefulness, because if you're grateful, right, you're going to end up seeing opportunities that weren't even there before, because you're sitting down and you're actually thinking about,
right,
what is valuable in my life, what whether they be work, personal, or health related, that has been good to you, right? And sometimes I could be like thinking about like being grateful for other people that are in my life, right? And then realize like, hey, I haven't even talked to them. Like, let me get in right? And then you start getting in touch with people, and those relationships are so important and stuff like that. But the opposite of gratefulness is just like complaining, right? So
right.
If you're constantly complaining and thinking everything is bad, it's just like, it's a amazing negative energy.
Yeah, it's a very you're going to be in a very unproductive space in your head, and right. So
like,
to fast forward, so you're getting up in the morning, you're you're I think spirituality is very important for you. You're meditating and you're praying. Then what happens? How is your typically how do you spend your day?
Yeah, so I'll spend my day then with my whether it be my son or family. I'll spend my day just like catering to their needs and seeing what they're
right. How old is your son, by the way?
He is 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, he's 10 years old.
You had him when you were first starting up in New York. I remember.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then make sure their needs are taken care of and stuff like that. And then I just sometimes there's exercise, right? And a lot of things I do, like for example, I intermittent fast every day. So
wow.
I don't eat in the morning, rarely. do I ever eat? Because it just sucks. I wake up and I don't feel like
I think we lost you there for a second.
my energy.
Uh,
And I focus on actually getting a lot of my multi-vitamins.
mhm.
With there's a lot of stuff I take. I take a lot of weird stuff. Hello?
Can you hear me? Yeah, Jawad, just give it a second. Sorry, I think we're having a little bit of technical.
Hello?
Just give it a second, Omar. I think we're having a little bit of technical.
He's fine. I mean, he's frozen. His screen is frozen.
His screen is frozen, or mine?
His screen is frozen.
Okay. Um. Just give it a second here. If you're
Hello? Yeah.
I think we had some. Oh, I think we're off now. All right, folks, just give it a second. I think we're gonna get Omar back online. Jawad's working on it. And if you're watching this, we really appreciate you sticking around with us. It's been a almost an hour discussion. We're gonna try to wrap up and get a few more gems out of Omar, few practical things. And if you're watching this, please do share, give us that like, and so that more people can benefit from from amazing. And so far, we've been talking about how he went from his corporate work all the way to his consulting and things he's working on right now. And we're trying to really get to know him as a person, so we can how he balances his time, how he gets over his all the challenges he had. So Jawad is right there. He's actually working on trying to get Omar back online. Meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, I'm not sure. Feel free to ask. As we're wrapping up, as soon as he comes back online, we're going to try to take some of those questions. All right. So just stick around for a moment. We almost have Omar back online. How are we doing, Jawad?
I'm working on it. 30 seconds.
Okay, so got 30 seconds. So you know what? In this 30 seconds, since you're here, I want to share with you. If you're just joining us, we had Omar. He is a serial entrepreneur. He started a seven-figure consulting firm. He has an app that has 40 million users. I made a mistake. I said several thousand. It's actually 40 million users. And he's on some amazing stuff. And this show, Live Buildup, we're not a business show necessarily, and we're not an entrepreneurship show because we have plenty of people who are just amazing, doing amazing in their careers, and we also encourage that. But we wanted to bring up successful people who are doing it really, to see how they get it done. And so that's where we are. I think he's almost back, if I'm not mistaken. Should be back. Okay. I see a gray screen. So, by the way, Jawad today he's not with me on the chair. He's taking care of technical stuff. He's right there. We can't see him. But okay, let's see. Is Omar back? Let's see how we're doing. Let me see here. Okay, the screen is gray. If I'm not sure if that means anything.
He thinks your connection is having problems.
Okay, so well, he lives in New York actually, but he's right now. I think he lives in New York. I have to ask him again. He does, right? Back and forth. Okay, so because he has offices in other parts of the world, but he's right now in Egypt with his family in the Middle East. So let's see. We should be able to get him back sometime. The internet connection can be out of whack, but So, anyways, look. I'm telling you, I don't know what was your gem for so far from the 1 hour discussion that we had, but my gem, really, honestly, was that I think the big one was about the networking. Just being able to know that people have things to offer, and then the big thing is, oftentimes realizing that people that have resources, for you it might seem like a big deal for them to make a phone call to get you in a door somewhere, but for them it's not even a big deal, right? So realizing that just really think about that. I mean, it's oftentimes we feel like, wow, can he do that? Can she do that for me? For them it's very small, but for you to expect that from them, you have to be able to also contribute. You might say like, what am I going to give to someone who is a CEO, who is a multimillionaire, or what I'm going to give to this person, right? Oh, he's back.
I'm back. Yeah, was it my connection or your connection? Because I kept getting coming back, and you weren't there.
I was still here. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm glad you're back. So that's the important.
Okay, good.
All right.
What was the last thing you heard?
We're talking about your typical day, so that and you're talking about, I think, in some days exercise, you take care of your son, 10-year-old, and you take care of that, and then you're going into your work a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So getting into my work, I document everything, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I make sure that first and foremost, we're in business, so tracking revenues from all businesses and
Right.
all activities and stuff like that is super important. Definitely journaling is really important.
Right.
The reason being is that you don't want to keep making the same mistakes.
Right.
So journaling and realizing that, for example, say this week I did really well, like businesses did really well and stuff like that. And 6 months down the line, I'm like, why did I do well that week?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't realize it, right? So you could look back at your journal and be like, oh, okay, that's the certain activity that was working for me during that week. So just realizing certain trends and activities that are working for you, you can go back and then double down on them or focus on those activities and things that have gotten you the most results.
So if you don't capture what's going right, you can't repeat it. So obviously you make it right.
And the opposite too. If you're not like looking back and reflecting on what's going wrong or what's not going perfect or whatever, you can't make adjustments also.
Right.
So
and I think a lot of folks who are watching this and will be watching this, more folks, some folks are not entrepreneurs, right? So we have a whole lot of people who are doing really amazing in their careers, and even for them, I think this applies where in businesses, of course, you're recording what's going right, what's not working. Even in your own personal life or in your career, even having some journaling or being able to have time for reflection, I think is so vital.
yeah, well, no, I mean, journaling is not about business. Also, for me, it's not like it's very much health too, right? Like, I was a little bit probably. I've never been overweight, right? But I probably let myself go a little bit, like a year and a half ago.
Huh.
And I started also tracking my weight. So like I track my weight every day, almost every day. I write down what my weight is for the day and stuff like that. And that helps me manage it, right? That helps me, eat the right things and so forth. And within my sort of journal, I have also my health. So whether they be like blood sugar levels, cholesterol, whatever.
Wow.
I'm tracking all of this stuff. The reason being is that history becomes fuzzy, especially your own personal history becomes a little bit fuzzy and hard to remember, okay, when you look back at it, because your mind sort of thinks that like either makes it a lot worse than it is or a lot better than it is. Right. So you want to make sure that stuff is documented so you know what it is, right? And the other day, like I did a blood test and I was like measuring, like thinking about my results. I was like, what was my results like last year, right? And boom, I had that information readily available for me, and I'm able to act on it a lot easier.
For sure. So if you're recording, so you're able to sort of keep track. Now, oftentimes, in our show, we've been doing this for 4 months now, and obviously we talk about success, fulfillment, and balance. And oftentimes, I think some people get scared when we talk about like productivity or doing more with your life or whatever field or or business you're in. Uh, so people think folks who are playing at a really high level, they're just like working all the time. Like it's a very boring life. So
Sure.
what would you say? Do you have things that you waste your time on, or it could be even it could be something that's you choose to waste your time on? No, what do you say about that?
Well, there's no such thing to me as wasting time, right? So
Ah, right,
I don't want to waste time. That's the only resource that you can't get back, right?
right,
So I don't
for sure.
waste time per se. So like stuff that interests me benefit me kind of thing, right?
Mm,
So um, whether they be like, for example, health, right? Like I waste my money on a lot of health stuff,
ah,
testing and whatever, and like researching that stuff and all that. So, but that benefits me. That
mm,
benefits me a lot, right? Like I get into perspective or a different mindset
right.
of probably the top 1% or top 5% of just health experts, and just learning that stuff.
Ah,
That that, that's enjoy that like that I enjoy that stuff,
so
right?
are you into like Dr. Axe or something like that?
Yeah, I don't watch too much Dr. Axe, but like yeah, like a lot of alternative stuff, natural stuff. I get
uh-huh.
those things are interesting to me, right? One thing I started taking recently was phytoplankton,
Ah,
right? Because it's like the world's what do they say is like the old life starts from phytoplankton kind of thing, because
wow. And by the way,
it's
we're not promoting any particular product. It's not a health
no, no,
show.
no, yeah, yeah. It's not a
Right,
brand or anything like that.
right,
Yeah,
right,
we're not giving it medical advice and stuff like that.
right.
But it's just something I like. I just started taking, right?
Ah,
A lot of that stuff interests me,
ah,
so I'm really into that. I like marketing, so I mean that's my field and stuff like that. I like
right.
the psychological aspect of marketing. So I read a lot of books about that, like just like psychology and influence and
So in your field, so you obviously you really enjoy learning more about your field and all the new cutting edge. So do you do anything that's not in your field, not in your any of your line of your businesses that
yeah, yeah.
interests
Well, yeah, I was saying
the
like
health? The health, obviously, yeah, the health is a big one.
the health. I travel a lot too,
Mm,
right? And again, I've been to close to 50 countries.
wow. Hmm.
I've been to close to 50 countries and stuff like that. So a lot of times, yeah, I mean, I travel for business, right? But I mean, I'm looking around. You know, 2 weeks ago, it was the first time I've been to Brussels. It
Ah,
was the first time I've been to Budapest,
mm.
right? I was just there, servicing clients and so forth. So,
So that's pretty
um,
cool. You sort of. I think a lot of folks who play at a high level they do that where they really big on combining things, right? Because as much as you can merge, so you get to you take care of your clients at the same time. It's a vacation for you, or sometimes folks or to take their family and they sort of mix and match to be more
yeah,
efficient.
yeah, it's called leverage, right? You want to
Absolutely.
leverage your resources, right? Like, I don't think I've ever, like in 10 years, I've never taken a vacation,
Right.
right? I've never, like, I don't think I have, right? Um, it's even, religious pilgrimage. I was on a consulting gig already in Saudi Arabia, and
Right.
I went ahead and did it there while I was there. So
That's
yeah,
very cool.
I try to leverage and combine things to get the maximum out of it.
As we are coming towards the end here, time is trickling away. What in the last 10 years that you've been in this, more than that actually, you've been in this space. Have you had any failures, and how did you sort of pick yourself back up, if you had any?
I've had tons of failures. I've had
Hmm.
businesses that, they're like, for every successful business I tell you about, there were like four or five that weren't successful.
That's so
Um,
key. A lot of people don't see that side of you, or any other folks who are
yeah,
doing really well. Yeah.
yeah, I had like, for example, a resume making company
Mm.
software, right? That was really unsuccessful. I had a job portal site that I made that was really unsuccessful. Spent a lot of money and stuff like that. The way you get over like those types of failures, right, is kind of like, you got to average things out, right? So,
Mm.
uh, say I'm doing sales calls. A lot of people are afraid of doing sales calls, and what we teach them is that, say you made $100. Well, so forget it, $100. Let's do a number. You made $10,000 for one sales call,
Right, right.
right? But you only close 20%.
Ah,
Say you only close 10%. So you make 10 sales calls. You made 10 sales calls, and you only closed one.
right,
Okay, but you made $10,000 in that one sales call,
right,
right?
right.
What you really need to realize is that every time you got on the phone, you made $1,000.
Mm. That
Like,
that's right. Yeah.
right. So that's why documenting and seeing what your averages are and so forth are so important, because when you realize that every time you're making a call, you're making $1,000, and you don't look at it as every time I made a call, I got rejected, you're more prone to make more calls. Okay. So that's how I think about like businesses and failures is that like every time I started a business, that was successful, I did very well. Okay. And that means that, if one out of every five businesses did very well, that means that like every time I start a business, I do very well.
Right, right.
So let me just keep doing it, so that's how I think about things.
So I guess what helped you sort of recover from the failure is that you did so many. So it was like a number game for you. I mean, you did so many projects, and that when you looked at it, you said, you know what? Last 10 years, I did pretty good. I had a lot of failures, but like at the end, I had several that worked, and they made up for the rest.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Jawad, do we have any questions from anyone that would want Omar to answer? I'm just waiting for Jawad to.
Yeah, sure.
Jawad, do we have any question, anything like that?
Yeah.
What
So somebody.
can you put up on the screen?
Yeah, I can.
All right, so he'll put up on the screen. Uh, while we do that, I mean, so while he's putting it up, what I think we have a question here. What book are you reading now? So I guess they want some
Sure.
recommendation for books.
Yeah. So the book I'm reading right now is well, the book I'm reading now, it's not a recommendation. I'm just reading it.
Right, that's true.
Um, it's Epic Content Marketing. So
Mm.
I'm getting into more of just content marketing and helping people out on a more mass level. Just free, give stuff out for free. So I want to understand how to manage that process out a lot
Ah.
more. So,
Mm.
so that's the book I'm reading right now.
There's so many things, especially particularly in the market and so forth, which I hope we can have you come back someday. Talk about
Oh,
that.
I love this. Great.
Um,
Yeah.
now, while he's pulling up any more questions, did you have to make any sacrifices to do what you do?
Oh, tons. Yeah. I mean, you got to make sacrifices for everything that you do.
Right.
And to be a bum, you got to make a sacrifice, right? Because you've got to leave your house and live on the street kind of thing. But like, yeah, I mean, for me, the sacrifice was uh, friends first off.
Huh.
Okay. Like a lot of people don't understand what I do, and a lot of
Mm,
people don't want to understand what I do.
mm,
So, there are people that just love working at a job and 9 to 5 and stuff like that,
mm, mm-hmm.
and they don't understand my lifestyle kind of thing, about the stuff I do, right? Friends, family, that, I mean, a lot of that tends to, you outgrow a lot of people,
Ah,
put it that way. But then, I mean, at the flip side, I've gained so much, right? So it's part of me just being grateful,
mm, mm.
just realizing that I gained so many people in my network and connections and stuff like
So
that.
I guess unfortunately some folks, you're gonna end up losing touch with, because it's just not aligned in the way direction you're moving. But at the same
Exactly.
but at
This
the
is,
same
this
time
is
you gain some different people and
exactly.
new relationships. Jawad, I think that I saw a question there. I think it
Yeah.
went away.
Circle it back up.
Okay, so I think that there are some questions. I mean, if you're comfortable, you feel free to. These are not related to sort of what we cover, but I think folks are interested, given that
Yeah,
what you feel that if you're
yeah.
comfortable, you can answer.
Right. What is the best strategy to recruit some people on commission based rather than regular salary? Yeah, you've got to incentivize people on a commission basis, right? So you do pay them a little bit more than salary based per commission. And the second thing is that you've got to offer some intangible factor, like you're offering training that helps them close at a higher rate. So you're offering training and support that, so if they worked on a salary, they would close only maybe 20%, but with you, they're closing 50%. Okay. And that will make them very loyal to you. Right. And that goes beyond money, but it goes more on establishing a relationship that you've helped that person out, teaching them the ways of your business and making them involved and giving them ownership of your business. So yeah, that's two strategies that I would use. Pay them more and establish a relationship through education when you're recruiting people on a commission basis rather than regular salary.
Yeah, one more.
Go ahead. Put up on the screen. Omar,
Okay.
can you see the question?
Yeah. So
Go for it.
how did your marketing to reach such a high amount of users nowadays? Marketing applications extremely difficult due to the competition. So what was your main marketing method? That's a great question by Naeem. Um, what you got to realize, Naeem, right, is that you got to know who your ideal customer is. And again, this goes way back to the beginning of this call, where most of us don't get people-to-people relationships. Okay, so anytime I get a new email lead, a new customer, or so forth, I ask them, like, what motivated you to join us? What motivated you to be interested in us, and so forth. And that information, what you need to realize is that people in your target customer base behave very similarly to the rest of everybody else, right? So if you could be talking to those people in a way that they resonate with, you'll be blown away by how many people actually come to you for business and want to work with you for business, right? Competition is irrelevant when you start to do this and try to really understand how your customer thinks, what their troubles are, what keeps them up at night, what is their biggest challenge, right? If you start talking to them in the way that you can be solving their problems, they'll be loyal customers for life, right? Because you really took that time to understand them, right? And in marketing, the beauty of marketing and technology is that you could do this. Once you understand one person, you can understand 1,000 people and 2,000 people, 3,000 people, and then it just multiplies. It grows as you get smarter and smarter. So competition is irrelevant because the vast majority of people are, number one, trying to copy each other's messages, right? So they come off as fake and not real. And the second thing is that a lot of people just don't know how to do it right. They just they give out generic messages like, I get this all the time, like, get your website done for cheap. Most people most people will never buy a product based on price. And unfortunately, vast majority of marketers market based on price, which kills them. Which, like, that one thing, if you realize that price is irrelevant, okay, the ability or the belief that the customer has that you can deliver for them and deliver really well, okay, if you can make that belief in that person's mind, okay, price becomes irrelevant. Okay, as long as they have the money, they will spend on you over somebody else. Nobody cares that you're the cheapest, because they don't actually want to buy your product. So yeah, I guess, Naeem, the short answer to your question is really understand your customer, do a lot of research about them. And the second thing is avoid competing on price. There's no glory to being the second best price.
That's true. Jod, I mean,
Yeah, two more.
there's can we take two more questions? Or how are we doing with time, Omar? I know you have to go as well.
Yeah. What industries am I experienced marketing in? So so I have a master's in marketing. So or it's like, let me not say it wrong. I have a master's in business administration, concentration in marketing. So industries that I've marketed in the apps industry, e-commerce, B2B services, startups. I mean, a lot of it rhymes. Once you know the core principles of marketing, you could almost market in any industry and do it very successfully, just with a little bit of research and following a certain principles and methodology. So yeah, I've worked across many industries.
Okay, Jod,
Last one.
all right, we'll take the final question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. Adamin said, how do you manage multiple projects, priorities, workflow? Do you use software? Okay, so this I needed a lot of mentorship for, okay? And the way you manage multiple projects is that you have project managers, okay? So you got to know what you're good at. So people focus on everything because they're the entrepreneur and they need to do everything. But if you're really a sales guy, okay, you need to then get people that are really good at project management and operations and so forth. And they manage those processes, okay? And everything has its cost, okay? And for me, I'm more willing to give up equity. I'm more willing to give up salary, like actually salary expenses and stuff like that, in order to get things done. So my priorities for the most of the time out of me is that I focus strictly on the vision, being the vision guy, and the sales, and then all the other details, I have other people managing it, those processes. So customer services, I have a customer services person. Websites, I have somebody managing the project. Like, I don't want my website guy to be asking me, what colors should be on the website and stuff like that. No, I have somebody managing the website guy and stuff like that. So you need to have project managers managing those projects. You cannot, again, I can't emphasize this, you cannot grow your business if you're not, if you don't have a staff and it's growing every day, a core group of staff and people working for you.
And I think, Omar, I think a lot of people, especially in this question, I want to jump in a little bit. People oftentimes figure out, okay, when do I spend resources to get these, sort of managers or add in people versus, if I do it myself, I'm cutting costs and so forth. So balance between me being able
Yeah.
to grow.
Right. That's a mindset thing. That's a mindset thing that's very incorrect. And again, I'm glad you brought up this point. Is that like ads should never cost money. Ads should
Mm.
only you should always if your mindset is always focusing on cost rather than revenue and like profits,
Mm.
okay, you're gonna never spend, right? If something's always costing you money, you're never gonna spend that money. Okay, but if things are always making you money, you're always
Ah.
going to be spending money, right? My project managers make me money, so I always want a project. Like I can't get enough project managers.
Wow,
You get what I mean?
that's a really good way of looking at it. I mean, it's not it's not costing me money. It's what's making me money. That's true. That is true.
Yeah. So again, that's why journaling is so important, and that's how it ties back. Is that you need to have a understanding of what's making you money and what's costing you money. Because whatever's costing you money, you got to cut out, and whatever's making you money, you've got to keep putting money in that,
Right.
right? So that's that. I mean, that's basically the simple formula.
So, who do you want to let you go? So just to
You're
wrap
welcome.
up, so what's next for Omar? What's next?
What's next is I'm focusing on my three core businesses, right?
Mm.
They're all related. They work with each other.
Mm.
And it's just growing those to levels that they weren't before. So I'm definitely not looking to start any other businesses
Right.
and stuff like that. I do like investing and so forth, but my main goal is growing what I already have and growing it in ways that I can leverage them in the future.
For sure. No, we wish you best of the best, and thank you again for taking the time to join us on this special episode. And
My pleasure.
you know,
My pleasure.
I mean, Jawad and I really hope that you can, and I'm sure the folks that joined us and a lot more folks who will be watching the replays, that I'm sure they will love to have you back, and I'm sure there's a lot more questions. Thank you.
Bring them on, and anybody that wants to get in touch with me,
Yeah, for sure.
they
Yeah,
can
what's
feel
the best way?
free to connect with me either on Facebook or just email me, omar@omartaha.com.
Okay. Jot, can you put that up on the screen? So it's Omar at omartaha.com, you said?
Yeah,
Okay. So we'll put it up once we put the replays up. We'll put the title. I think Jot probably has what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you. Because we saw a lot of folks who are usually they're on our show. They came in today and they were asking you questions. So I'm sure that they don't have they might not they probably got to know you for the first time, and I'm sure they have a ton of questions.
great. Well, the pleasure's mine, and I'm really supportive of what you're doing. And let me know if there's any way I can help.
Alrighty. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Alrighty. All right, folks, and thank you for joining us on this, episode, this special episode, and we hope this is first of many more to come. Right, Jawad? I think we have a line of folks because Jawad and I we've been every night, every night I say this, every Monday night we've been sitting with you and we try to share the gems that we have and we talk about things, but I think we have decided now that we really want to showcase people who are living what we've been talking about, right? And I'm learning from this, and I'm sure you are, and Jawad is learning from this, so we're really excited, and there's many more to come. We'll see. If we're gonna keep it this on the Saturdays, we'll see. But thank you for joining us. If you benefited any from the show, as always, we request you go ahead and like our live build-up page. We are on iTunes, and share the show. It's the least that we they can do that. It will benefit tremendously. There's someone, friend, family, your social media contact that will benefit from this. The link is there. Jawad will put it up, and share it. So with that, today I'm not gonna say good night. Today we're gonna say have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend, wherever you are in U.S. or in around the world, and take care.